There is one story that so many story structure models use as an example. Maybe you love it, maybe you're sick of it, but I'm going to use it too. And the reason is because that way it can make it easier to compare a model you're familiar with to the StoryJoules model. I'm Jule Kucera, creator and founder of StoryJoules, and I help writers craft powerful stories. Yep, you guessed it. In this video, we'll analyze George Lucas's Star Wars Episode 4, the very first Star Wars movie, 1977. If you don't yet have your copy of the StoryJoules handbook, you can download it below. It describes the model in detail to help you craft your story. We'll start with our empty pizza pan with the 8 slices, segments, starting at 12 o'clock. The movie opens with this text crawl, and I remember when I saw this in the theater thinking, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. The idea that we've gone from 2D to a 3D view, and then we get this view of the spaceship that just keeps coming and coming and coming, and you know you're in for a wild ride. That is the beginning of the status quo for our protagonist, Luke. He is working on his uncle's farm. He believes he is an orphan, and he has been sent out to purchase a robot to help on the farm, and he is about to purchase the wrong robot. Notice our beloved R2-D2 in the foreground. Next, we have the Whiff Inciting Incident. This is the event that starts the story ball rolling. For Star Wars, it's when Luke is cleaning the droid, and lo and behold, there's a hologram, and someone who seems to be a princess, and she says, "Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope." Well, this is interesting, and Luke thinks he better ask old Ben about this to see if he knows this Obi-Wan person. And then we have the debate, and the debate for Luke is when Obi-Wan asks him if he wants to go with him to Alderaan to return the droid to the princess. And Luke says, I can't do it, on the farm, gotta help, maybe next year, blah, blah. But then when they go back to take Luke to where he lives with his aunt and uncle, the farm's destroyed and they've been murdered. So Luke says, I gotta go. And he tells Obi-Wan, yep, there's nothing left for me here. I will go with you. I will go with you to Alderaan. And this is the moment in every story when the protagonist makes an irrevocable decision. For Luke, he can't go back to his old life because his old life doesn't exist anymore, but he's definitely stepping into a new life, a new world. This is critical because this is the beginning of the external pressure, the chaos that is going to force Luke to change. For Luke, he goes to the upside down world, and it's definitely a world like neither he nor we have ever seen before. But they get in and out of the cantina without too much trouble, thanks to Obi-Wan. But then they have the whoa, shake up a belief. And what gets shaken? The belief that gets shaken is how easy this adventure we're on, this invitation that the protagonist accepted will be. It's not going to be as easy as we thought. In Luke's mind, he's on an adventure to rescue a princess, and then they're in the Millennium Falcon and see that that moon they think they are approaching is not a moon, it's a spaceship, and that rubble is not an asteroid field, it is a destroyed planet. It's Alderaan, the place they were supposed to go. And what this whoa, shake up a belief does is show the power of the antagonistic force, and it's pretty big. But we have cling to old mindset. In this segment, the protagonist keeps their current mindset. In Luke's mind, I'm going along, I'm supporting the rescue of the princess mission. And I love this picture because you have them both in their default behaviors. You have Han with the gun, he defaults to shoot. When in doubt, shoot. And you have Luke kind of like helping. He's even standing like he doesn't look like a stormtrooper. He looks like he's dressed up for Halloween. And you've got lovely Chewbacca in the middle. Then we have the mindset shattering midpoint. And this is the point where the protagonist learns something that completely changes how they're thinking about things. For Luke, it's after he goes into this, they go into the waste compactor and the walls are starting to close in and he gets sucked under the water by some sort of giant worm thing and nearly drowns. But he doesn't drown. And that is his mindset shattering moment where he's like, this is not a rescue the princess adventure. This is life or death. I could die. We could all die. And I need to take more responsibility. I need to become a hero of my own life. This moment, this mindset shattering midpoint, marks the beginning of the internal change of the protagonist when they move from stasis, their standard way of thinking, which leads to their standard way of behaving, to changing. Then comes plan A, change you. The protagonist becomes proactive at that midpoint. That's a real fulcrum for the story. But they're still focused on changing what's around them, not changing themselves. But what happens is, as Luke has left the place he was told to stay so he could go rescue the princess, Obi-Wan and Darth meet up with one another, and they begin to do battle. We have next the wham, all is lost, and this is when the protagonist loses whoever or whatever is most important to them. And if you think about Luke, who believes he's an orphan, who's just lost his aunt and uncle, the only semi-parents they've known, now Obi-Wan Kenobi gives up his life so that he can actually become even more powerful. But to Luke, Obi-Wan is gone. Next up is the dark night of the soul, where the protagonist licks their wounds, retreats, mourns their loss. And this is one of the shortest dark nights of the soul in storytelling. This is one sentence where Luke says, I can't believe he's really gone. But that is Luke's dark night. But then we have next up, the return changed. This is where the protagonist returns to the problem that's been dogging them from the beginning. For Luke, it's taking responsibility for his own life and seeing the world not as a place where he follows rules and goes to pilot school and then can do some things, but he starts doing things, taking action, being proactive, and he goes to the rebel base. And the rebel base talks about how inside the R2-D2 unit they uncovered plans to the Death Star that have revealed a fundamental weakness, where if you hit the target, you will destroy the Death Star. And people are overwhelmed by the challenge of this, but Luke is not. He says it's like shooting swamp rats or whatever he calls them. This is a critical moment because it's the point where the protagonist begins to bring order to their chaotic world. This is the shift from external chaos to the beginning of external order. For Luke, plan B, change me. He's going to be different. And the way he's different is he's going to fly his own jet. And he's going to have his buddy R2-D2 in the back. And if we think about who he was at the beginning with his land speeder to who he is at the end with his fighter jet, we are seeing a different Luke. Next up, the dig down deeper. This is where the antagonist and the protagonist duke it out, especially in an action movie. Darth comes after the rebels, and at this point, Luke has lost, I think, every single one of his compatriots. They've all tried to hit the target. It failed, lost their planes, lost probably their lives. But now it's just Luke and Darth one-on-one. And Darth is hot on Luke's tail. But Luke takes one shot at the target, misses the first time when he uses the computer. And then the second time, Obi-Wan says to him, "Trust the Force, Luke." Luke turns off his computer, closes his eyes. I guess he opens them again before he fires. But anyway, the net effect is that he successfully hits the target, blows up the Death Star. Han has come back to help him, and they speed off. They speed off from the exploding planet. Then next up, the final segment, we have the New World, and this is where the protagonist, in a prescriptive story where they have a character arc and they do change, brings about a new world. And Han and Luke have brought about, and Leia have brought about a new world. They are now, they believe, free from the evil empire. Notice how the humans get medals, but the robots and the Chewbacca do not. That is an editorial comment there. But anyway, this is the completion of the Star Wars analysis on the StoryJoules model. All stories in a Western model follows a form, but it doesn't feel formulaic. If we think about the internal change that we travel with Luke as he goes through the story, it's a worldview story. Worldview is also called coming of age, and you don't have to be young to come of age. You can come of age, you can mature your worldview at any age. But Luke changes from thinking he's got to follow the rules and work the plan and then he can do things to, I can take charge of my life and my world right now. And then the external pressure, this is an action movie. The stakes are life and death. He feels that in his body he gets threatened, shot at, goes into the trash compactor, and then the duking it out in the final battle. It's also more than just an action movie. It's a war story because there's an entire community that feels the pressure. And in this case, the community is the community of rebels, the Rebel Alliance. If we look at it quadrant by quadrant, in the first quadrant, it's all about external order and internal stasis. The second quadrant is all about external chaos. The world's gone upside down. And internal stasis, clinging to our old beliefs. The third quadrant is external chaos, even more ramped up, and internal change, the beginning of internal change, but not the consolidation of it. And the fourth quadrant is external order and internal change. You can see here, segment by segment, what's going on internally and externally. You can screenshot this or download the StoryJoules handbook. It's in there. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. Tally ho.